Now that is what I expect to see from The Flash this season. Hey guys, Cameron for The Flash, Season 2, Episode 20, Rupture, and holy shit what an episode this was. I mean, this episode really was crazy, and I know last week I was hard on last week's episode. Why? Because look at this episode, look what this show is capable of when it takes some risks, when it does something different, when it tries to not just copy Season 1 and not just focus on a serial mystery. This episode was really deep. It actually had some really good subtext to it. It had a really shocking ending that we'll definitely get into, and I actually think made Zoom even more compelling, which I really did enjoy. But let's just get into this episode because I really love this episode. There were some really great things about it, and definitely, in my opinion, one of the best of the season. Maybe the best. I'm not really sure. I feel like Earth 2, it's just hard to top that episode. Welcome to Earth 2 was just such a great episode. That's still my favorite episode of the season. I'm sure there's going to be an episode that beats that eventually, but right now, I don't know, but there were a lot of things revealed in this episode. A lot of revelations happen here, and let's just get into it, because I have no idea how the rest of the season is going to go. So we see the police chase two crooks through the street. Cisco calls it to Barry. Flash closes in on the crook's car, and as they lose the police on the treadmill, Barry keeps running. Cisco directs the hologram projection and warns they can't do the lightning toss. However, he manages to run the hologram around the car, blinding the crooks and forcing them to pull over. And as the hologram comes to a stop, the police arrive and arrest the crooks. So once Barry gets off the treadmill, we see Wells comes in and warns that eventually someone will figure out that it's a hologram projected by a satellite, because it's not actually happening. It's simply just a hologram. And basically, they need to make it seem like the Flash is still out there. One, to keep metahumans off the street, obviously, because there are so many metahumans and they're dealing with Zoom, and we know what Zoom is capable of, things like that. Also, they want Zoom to think that, I think they kind of want Zoom to think that the Flash isn't really around anymore, because if, Zoom doesn't think that, then, I think Zoom knows, obviously, that Barry's around, but I think they're basically just trying to keep also the hope in Central City, because they need Flash there, the kind of hope he has for everyone, the hero that he is there, and he says that they should rebuild the particle accelerator and get Barry's speed back, and that's what most of this episode focuses on, is this question of, should they really rebuild this particle accelerator? Is it a good idea? Is it really risky? Is it something that can actually work? And Barry points out the last time they did it, they spawned dozens of metahumans and created a portal, and that's really what got them into this mess, of course. So Barry's really wondering, is this a safe idea? Because really, when Barry turned into the Flash, it opened the world for more threats, basically. We know that from the intro. He says, I opened the world to more threats, in doing so by killing Wells. And, that's really what turned all of these metahumans into villains, and they might not have been villains if they weren't metahumans, and Barry doesn't want to have to deal with more of them, and I think it's also that he really feels like he's gonna cause a lot of that, and we really see Barry's selflessness. That's something that's very important with Barry, and something we really saw here is how selfless Barry really is, and how he really is worried that he's gonna be the direct cause of more metahumans. And Harry and Wells insists that he can contain the explosion, and it points out that he has Wells's, Harrison Wells's data, and he warns that when Zoom returns, they can only stop him if Barry gets his speed back, because there is no way they're going to be able to stop him if Barry is weaker than him. They need Barry to be just as strong, if not stronger. That way it'll be a fair fight, and that he can take on Zoom, because obviously we know that Zoom's going to do a lot of damage to Barry, and we don't really know what's going to happen there. So Barry drives to the cabin where Henry is staying, and finally we get to see Henry. We haven't seen Henry since the Gorilla Grodd episode, but I love seeing Henry, and it kind of seems like we're going to see Henry for us the season, because they do imply that Henry is going to stay with Barry. Harry wonders why Barry drove. Barry explains that he gave up his powers to save Wally. He brings his father up to speed on what has been happening, and I like what was done. It was kind of like rushed exposition, but it was stuff we need to hear. Obviously, Henry needed to be caught up, and Henry knows his mother's maiden name is Garrick, and that's very interesting we found this out. Barry explains that Wells' plan, but Henry wants to make sure that it's safe, because he doesn't really think that this is a safe situation, because he knows, and I love his main concern. The main concern is that Barry was struck by lightning, and that really is why he doesn't think it's going to be safe, because back then, Barry, of course, didn't have his powers, and then he turned into the Flash. But now that he doesn't have his powers, and he's more vulnerable and less powerful, there's no telling what can happen to him. Lightning, as they always say, lightning does not strike twice. And in this sense, lightning is going to strike twice, but it's not going to strike twice in the sense that Barry will turn into the Flash again. I think that's kind of what that's trying to show there. So when Barry says it feels like everything good that's happened to him is taken away, Henry says it's time to do something about that, and, whether that resolves in making a new particle accelerator, he really doesn't want to help him. We see at Star Labs, we see Wells shows the others a schematic of his plan, and as Cisco Cisco insists that Barry can't do it. He gets a vibe of his brother Dante. Yes, Dante's back in this episode, who I can't remember when we saw Dante. I know we've seen him before. I can't really think of what episode, but when he snaps out of it, Cisco tells the others what he saw and leaves, and Barry and Henry arrive, and Barry says his father may be back for good. Iris says that Joe is with Wally at CCPD, and they go to get settled, and it's kind of an interesting situation here because, of course, Barry hasn't told Joe that he's planning on being with his father and that his father's planning on staying, but we know that Joe doesn't want to lose that dynamic with Barry. But, of course, ever since Wally came into the picture, that bond has still been strong, definitely, between Joe and Barry, but Joe does have Wally, and this episode kind of implies, I think, that Joe doesn't necessarily need Barry anymore. That I think Henry and Barry, I think Joe's okay with Barry and Henry, living together because he doesn't really need Barry. Before, he didn't even know he had a son, and Barry was that son he never had. And he's kind of gotten this bond with Wally that still isn't exactly father-son. I think they've definitely gotten closer, but there's still more, I think, on the verge of older friends than they are father-son. So they're at the station, Wally's with Joe, they're preparing to head out. Wally wonders if Joe ever gets sick of his police job and wonders if designing cars is really what he's meant to do with his life because he really thinks that is what he was meant to do. I mean, that's what he's been doing. And again, I really love Wally in this episode. I think they did a good job at, again, making Wally really interesting, and he really doesn't know if being in the police is what he wants to do. He thinks that cars is really his destiny, and I like that he is telling Joe that this might not be my calling. I thought that was really well done. But once again, we had some great scenes here between Jay and Caitlin, but once again, all the scenes between these two remain main focus. That was a problem last week, is that those scenes were not the main focus of last week's episode. This week they are, and I love that. So Zoom speeds in when Caitlin greets Joe and reminds the officers that they tried to shoot him before Caitlin begs him to spare the police, and Zoom tells the officers to tell everyone the city is his, anyone who disobeys him will die, and Singe tells everyone to clear out. The officers slowly back out, and you just see this control that Zoom has on everyone. I mean, he doesn't have to, really, he just has to say a few words, and he terrifies everyone. Just between his voice, his appearance, his his way of talking. I mean, everyone really is just terrified of Zoom, and you really see the power that he has here, and I really think they're doing a great job with showing that. So at Star Labs, Joe tells the others what happened. Wells says that Zoom slaughtered policemen first and then recruited metahumans and killed anyone who disobeyed him, and things are really just getting worse. I mean, especially with the Flash on the street, ready to stop him. Zoom can pretty much do whatever he wants, and I think that was kind of his idea, that Zoom wanted to do whatever he wants, and Joe explains that Caitlin talks Zoom into killing the officers. Barry suggested they set up at Jitters, and Wells warns that Zoom will do the same thing that he did on his Earth and walks out. Because we know, of course, the massacre and what Zoom did on his Earth and how corrupted Earth 2 is right now. So Joe goes to make sure that Wally and Jesse are safe because obviously that's his main concern. Wally and Jesse, obviously. Jesse is still there. What I liked though is that Jesse was to the side because she didn't necessarily, she worked last week, but we focused, I think, way too much on Jesse. And this episode, she was more to the side, and I definitely really did enjoy that. That's what she needs to be. She needs to be a background character. You can't have her as the main focus. She's not bad, she's just not the greatest actress, and that's really my thing. She's not the greatest actress, she's not as interesting as she should be, and because of that, I'm just not a huge fan of, for me at least, I'm not a huge fan of Jesse, and I'm glad that she was background here. So then we see, at the station, we see Zoloman handcuffs Caitlin, says that nobody can stop him. She wonders what his plan is, and Zoloman says that he won't kill everyone, and that's not his plan. He tells Caitlin that he doesn't want to be alone anymore, and, I mean, the big question I think we were left with last week is, does Zoloman genuinely care about Caitlin? Because there was a part of me that thought maybe he does, but then there was a part of me that thought he doesn't, and I feel like this episode really does confirm that Zoloman does in fact care about Caitlin, because Caitlin says that she will never be like him, and Zoloman says that he's seen the darkness inside her, and all she needs is to unlock it, and that is why he killed Killer Frost, because he feels that what Frost has, Caitlin has inside of her as well, and he just needs her to unlock that darkness, which we know that Frost used to be a much more cheerful person, that she used to have good inside her, but the Zoom got into her head, he made her the way she is, and now he wants to do the same thing to Caitlin, and it's a good direction to take her. I definitely do like seeing that, and I'm honestly wondering if he's going to get through to her, because I love seeing more Killer Frost on the show, and if this does work, this could really open more room for Killer Frost, because we know that Barry, of course, did see Killer Frost last year when he went in time, so I don't know if we're going to see more Killer Frost. I'm hoping we do, and I'm honestly hoping that Caitlin does turn to the dark side. I think it'd be a really cool direction to take her character in. So Once he speeds off, Caitlin notices some file boxes nearby and tries to reach them, and Cisco then tracks down Dante at a bar. Dante figures that something's wrong, and Cisco says that he had a feeling he needs to make sure his brother was okay. Obviously, he can't tell him about vibing and everything, but they start arguing right away, and Cisco admits that he thought being kidnapped by Captain Cold and Heatwave would bring them closer together, but Dante says that nothing is ever going to change that. They're always going to be separate. They're never going to be in the way that Cisco wants them to be, and it's honestly really sad. I really cared for Cisco in this situation. He really just wants to make things right with Dante. He wants them to be close, just at least civil to each other. He doesn't want them to constantly be fighting, constantly have so much against each other. He wants them to be just good brothers to each other. He just wants a nice bond with his brother, and it's clear that Dante is telling him, look, as good as that be, we can never have that, even though Cisco wants that. It's very sad to see, and I really feel bad for Cisco here, because unfortunately, he's sadly outnumbered. What he really wants, he just can't have. So at Star Labs, Joe, Wally, and Jesse load up the van with supplies, and Joe admits that they'll stay there until they can take care of Zoom. Wally asks to do something. His father says that there's nothing he can do, seals them in, because he really doesn't have anything for him to do. Wally just kind of has to sit back right now, which is interesting. I like seeing Wally kind of on the outside, because that's how Wally should be. I feel like Wally needs to be a background character. Now, I did hear that Wally and Jesse eventually do turn into part of the Flash's team. I don't remember what it's called exactly, but like the Flashes eventually get a team like Arrow. But of course, the show's called The Flash, and unlike Arrow, this show doesn't need the Flash to have a team. I don't think it's necessary. I think eventually they're going to do that, but I feel like next season is really when they're going to start doing that, not this season. I think next season really is when we're going to see more of that. So basically, Joe then checks with Wells, who is working out the explosion formulas. Wells says they have to convince Barry to change his mind, because Barry really, at this point, it really seems like he's swaying towards not creating that particle accelerator. And Henry then comes in, says that they shouldn't convince anyone to do something against their will. And I love this dynamic between Henry and Joe. We've kind of seen this before, but not exactly the way it is here, because you really see three men who all kind of want the same thing, but all want the same thing for Barry, but in different ways. Henry just cares about Barry's safety. Joe obviously is skeptical, but he thinks it'll work, and Wells is totally for it, which I think is really interesting. I really like the contrast between those three, and it's one of the things that I think really drove this episode forward for me. He wonders why Joe is considering the idea, because of course Joe should care about Barry, but again, as I said, Joe and Barry are not as tight, or as, Barry's not. I think Barry's just as important, but I think because he has Wally, he's not so much concerned to Joe. And basically Wells says it's about the people in Central City, and he really needs to think about that. And Henry points out that the explosion could kill Barry. Even if he gets his powers back, he still has to face Zoom, and he doesn't really know if that's going to work out well for him. And basically Wells then says the people of Central City need Flash. Barry comes in, overhears him. He says the decision is his, and he has to make it on his own. He's not going to let them decide for him. If he wants to do it, he's going to do it. If he doesn't want to do it, he's not going to do it. And I like that Barry is saying, look, as much as I want to do this, you can't make this decision for me, which I definitely love seeing. So at the bar, Cisco prepares to leave. Sees a broadcast about Zoom at the station. He runs out. Nate goes after him. A nearby motorcycle explodes. The brothers look to see a masked man welding a energy-charged scythe. He greets Cisco as Vibe, says that Vibe killed his brother, removes his mask to reveal he's the Earth 2 Dante, and this is very interesting. We found that here. We see and that, of course, is Rupture. So just like Vibe, there was we had Reverb. This is now Rupture, and Cisco tells Dante to run. They get into the van. I don't know what it is with Earth 2 and a bunch of, a bunch of people in your family dying, but that seems to be a very common theme in Earth 2, definitely. We've already seen that Earth 2 is a lot more corrupted and a lot more chaotic than anything in Central City. So basically, Cisco and Dante, they run, they get into the van as Rupture opens fire on them, then hacks open the rear of the van. Cisco shifts the van to reverse, knocks Rupture down, and then drives off, and already they have a new threat to deal with. And at Star Labs, Cisco tells the others what happened, and Wells identifies Rupture as another villain working for Zoom. And basically, Zoom, we've known this entire season that Zoom has been sending threats to them, basically to distract them. I think that's really been his main reason, to distract them. And Cisco figures that Zoom lied to Rupture about who killed the Earth 2 Cisco, and basically, Wells says that Rupture gets his powers from the scythe, and once Cisco leaves, Wells tells Barry that he knows what he needs to do. Barry goes to the accelerator chamber, Iris goes with him, and she points out that something could really go wrong here, and Barry admits that he thought bringing Henry would make his decision easier, but it's really not, because he knows how much Henry cares, and he knows, why Henry doesn't want him to do it, and he really just I feel like Barry feels he's gonna make the wrong decision no matter what, because Henry clearly doesn't want him to do that, and as much as he wants to make a decision on his own, he obviously wants his father to be in his life. And He asks Iris what she thinks, and she says she doesn't know if she can handle this. And Barry getting hurt again. Barry realizes that something is wrong, and I love the way the scene was done because we knew this was eventually going to happen. Iris, we known since 2 episodes ago when we had that whole big arc when we found out what was going on with Zoom. We know that she revealed to Caitlin that she does in fact have feelings for Barry, and she's not telling him about it. But finally, in this episode, we finally get that conversation we have been looking forward to, and we have been waiting for all this time. And I love that we finally got to see that, because it's something that we really, I think, been building towards the entire show. The second that Iris and Barry were introduced, I think we knew right away that these two are a match made in heaven. They just have some perfect chemistry, and even though people have said Candice Patton is not the greatest actress, you can't lie that she has incredible chemistry with Grant Gustin. Just from that first scene, she had incredible chemistry. Maybe it's that Grant Gustin just has fantastic chemistry with everyone, because I really think he does. He's one of those actors that just has mutual chemistry with everyone, but I also think that these two have just spot on chemistry, and it always just seemed like these two are meant for each other. But as we know, she had Eddie last year, and she had genuine reasons why she couldn't be with him, and now there's nothing really keeping her away from him. Barry realized that something is wrong. Iris says that he's always had someone home to come to, and she's been thinking about the two of them and how they seem fated to be together. Iris was with Eddie when Barry told her how he felt about her, but now she's available. Now she's gotten over Eddie. That whole video and everything that really made her forget about Eddie, and not forget about Eddie, but just get over him. And she wants Barry to know if it doesn't matter to him if he's Flash or not. She wants to see if she has a future with him. And they stare at each other for a moment. Then Iris goes to check on Wally and Jesse, and it seems like they are going to try something out, which I love seeing. Now, there was no kiss or anything between them in this episode, but I do think we're getting closer and closer to eventually Iris and Barry, because Iris really feels that these two are meant to be together. I mean, the fact that Earth 2, they're married and everything, that's a sign to her that maybe they are meant to be together. And I think it was a really good scene. It wasn't cheesy, it came across as very genuine, and really something that I think, like I said, I think the show's been building towards. So at this station, Kayla manages to snag an evidence box, takes out a phone. Meanwhile, Rupture arrives, tells Zoom that Cisco got away. Zoom tells him to wait for his revenge, then tells Rupture to show the police that they're wrong about being safe. And Zoloman then goes over to Kayla and says that they need to teach the police a lesson. She wonders if he wants people to be afraid of him, and that's why he changes his voice, which, again, didn't seem like a huge deal, but it is kind of a big deal, because we know when Zoloman talks, he obviously doesn't sound the way he sounds when he sounds like Zoom, but then when he's Zoom, he sounds so much more evil and menacing, and Zoloman then basically talks in his Zoom voice and says that he's nothing but a monster, and once he speeds off, Kaylin sends a text message warning about Rupture's attack, and you can see that Kaylin does see that he has some good in him, that he really just wants people to be afraid of him, and I feel like Kaylin is going to try to push that good in him, which is very interesting. And as much as Kaylin, we know obviously does not like Zoom, and she holds so much against him for lying to her and everything, you can see that she really does care, and she does want to see that good in him, and I definitely did love seeing that. So at Star Labs, the team receives Kaylin's text message, and Henry asks Barry what he's going to do. Barry says that until they know setting off the accelerator will work, it's really too risky, and he doesn't really know if he can go through with it, because he doesn't really know if it's going to work. They're going to have to figure out how to stop Rupture without Flash, and that's very interesting that Barry actually gave them this option, and it didn't seem like Barry was being selfish. This seemed like a genuine reason. I mean, obviously, it's a very risky situation. This could damage his life. We know what this could do to Henry. I mean, if, God forbid, Henry lose Barry, I don't know how he's going to be. The fact that he already lost his wife, we know what that did to Henry. Just imagine if he loses his son. I really think that's what Barry's worried about. He's worried that doing this to him will cause further problems. And in many ways, yes, I think it is going to cause further problems. And I really love seeing it. I thought that was definitely really well done, the way that scene was done. And like I said, some of the best scenes, without a doubt, were between Henry and Barry. So Joe and Barry go to Jitters, warns Singe and the others. He tells the captain that Flash will be there. Barry wonders if he made the right decision. And Joe says that right or wrong, he'll have to live with it, no matter what he does. And, that if he chose not to move forward and be the Flash or not, he's gonna have to live with that, and there really is no other way to put it. That he's gonna have to live with it. If he decides not to, he needs to think the consequence, because everything we do, I said before, every action has a positive consequence and a negative consequence, and really Barry needs to think of what the consequences of his actions are going to be for each possible choice. So I really did love seeing that. At Star Labs, Dante finds a note that Cisco left in case he didn't return from Earth 2. He wonders why Cisco went in the first place, and Cisco says that his friends need him to vibe, and Dante demands answers. Cisco tells his brother that he has powers, and I love that Cisco finally revealed that he has powers due to the particle explosion. This is something that eventually we knew was going to come out, but I didn't really know Cisco was going to tell him. When Dante wonders why Cisco didn't tell him, Cisco reminds him what he said earlier about them not being close, and Cisco asks Dante to wait there for him and leaves with his equipment, and I think Dante's really seeing that that Cisco does genuinely care, and I think that's the thing that Dante hasn't seen. Dante's, I think, always thought that Cisco kind of doesn't really care about him, and Cisco really only is there for him when he needs to be, and in this situation, he didn't need to tell Dante that he was, that he was vibe and that he could vibe and things like that. This is something that just came out, and I'm glad that that scene was done. I thought that was very well handled, and I definitely really enjoyed that. So Cisco drives a van to Cisco and waits outside. Rupture cuts its way in, wonders where the officers are hiding. The Flash hologram speeds in and dodges Rupture's blast. Barry fakes a fall, and when Rupture moves in for the kill, Joe and the others taser him. The officers take Rupture away, but the reporters get video of him, and again, it's just a hologram. There isn't a way for the Flash to physically be there. It's a very interesting way that was done, and at the station, Zoloman realizes that Caitlin warned the police. He sees the evidence box and realizes what she did, because we knew that there was something there, and Caitlin says that they're now equal. Zoloman dons his mask, said that his name is Zoom, and speeds to Jitters, and the officers draw their guns. Zoom tells the reporters to get everything. He then kills all the officers except Joe and Singe, which was crazy the way that scene was done, but again, just shows the power and menace that Zoom really has. And as Zoom grabs Singe, Barry runs in, tells him to stop. Zoom kills Rupture, then picks up a camera, tells the viewers that the Flash they've seen is a hologram, and right away outs the Flash to everyone. So right away is ruining Barry's plans. He says that there's no one left to protect the city from them, and it really just shows, I mean, that Zoom will do whatever he can to ruin the Flash, and even if the Flash isn't really there, he's going to ruin the Flash. He then tells Singe to tell his force that their policing days are over. Zoom warns Barry that he's only alive because of Caitlin, and that if he tries something similar again, then he'll call Barry regardless, and that he'll carry Barry if he needs to. He will kill him, and I love the way that was done. Again, very intense stuff, and it really does show that Barry can't hide anything from Zoom. Zoom will know when it's a hologram. He knows what's going on there, and he knows, of course, that Barry doesn't really have his speed. So that scene was just so intense, and I'm so surprised that he actually did that. I mean, the fact that he outed Barry to everyone and literally said straight out, this is a hologram, was crazy, and I never thought that Zoom would do that. I mean, we knew what Zoom was capable of, but this was just crazy. So basically, later at Star Labs, Cisco finds Dante. Dante realizes that Cisco wants to fight Zoom and tries to apologize. Cisco hugs him, says that he wants things to change. Dante hugs him back and agrees, and it's a really nice scene. You can see these two really do want to turn things around. They really do want to make things right, and I love seeing that. And I thought there were some really good scenes there. I hope we see more of Cisco and Dante, because I really do like this dynamic. So in the vault, Wally keeps trying to get the door open, says that they should be out so they can stop Zoom. When Jesse points out they have no powers because they are the only ones on the team that really don't do much of anything. Wally points out that she's good at solving unsolvable problems. Jesse says she'll see what she can do, and I love that Wally wants to do something. He doesn't know what he can do, but he wants to get involved, and again, it's not coming across as annoying. It's coming across as Wally just wanting to be a part of the team, because he knows that obviously there's something going on. He wants to do something about it. And of course, he also wants to, repay the Flash for saving him, but he doesn't really know how what he can do here. So in the Cortex, Harry Wales warns that the next Zoom will recruit every metahuman he can find. He has a flash drive with hundreds of names. They figure the metahumans will come out of hiding now that everyone knows Flash isn't around. And I mean, in order for him to do that, he's got to go to Iron Heights, because that's of course where all the metahumans are, and Henry doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe that Zoom is actually capable of it, but Walls points out that he's been right all along, and Barry says that they should recreate the explosion. He wants to do it. He points out that now a dead collapsed sun will have to grow up without a parent, just like he did. Barry gave his powers and enabled Zoom to rule their Earth, and now he has to fix things, and he really has no choice but to fix things, even though obviously, he gave his powers. He now needs to turn things around. He has no choice now. The fact that he outed him, the Flash needs to be around. He can't do this anymore. So Harry and Cisco finish and I love the inserting in the scene. You don't know if this is going to work. You really don't, because you're hoping it's going to, but you don't know. So Wells and Cisco finish the small-scale version of the accelerator that Harrison built. This time we'll direct all the energy into Barry. Wells says they need to recreate what happened with Barry and send Cisco to the roof and win the weather wand he built for Mark Martin. And once Cisco is up top, Wells tells him to direct the lighting to the satellite. The circuitry is hooked to the breach room, and Barry's in the breach room. Barry enters the chamber, clams fastenment in. He assures Joe that he'll be fine. Iris tells Barry that whatever happens, nothing will change the way she feels about him, and Henry tells his son that he doesn't have to do it if he doesn't want to, and Barry says that Flash is the best part of him. Wells then seals the chamber, and they begin, and again, you don't know what's going to happen here. We see the building, We don't know if this is going to work, but in the vault, Jesse rigs the door of the electricity, open it, the building shakes, and they go to investigate it, and of course, they don't really know what's happening, so they pretty much are just trying to get involved, but it's at the worst possible time, obviously. Wells injects the chemicals into Barry's system, and Cisco summons the lightning. We see Zoloman sees the lightning, speeds to Star Labs to shut it down, obviously, he wants to stop it, so Barry screams in pain, the accelerator energy strikes him, and as the team watches, Barry dissolves into energy, explosions rock the building, knocking Wally and Jesse unconscious, which was crazy. I'm sure they're going to be fine, but they're unconscious now, so I'm sure they're going to realize that they can't really be there, and that's not safe for them. So Cisco returns to the breach room, and everything seems to go okay, it seems like it actually worked, but then they realize that Barry is gone. He's not there for whatever reason. Now, I was thinking that Barry was, maybe left or Zoom took him, but Zoom arrives and I was thinking, all right, Zoom kidnapped Barry. That's what I was thinking. He's so fast, he could have done them without him seeing. But Zoom arrives, finds the remains of Flash's suit, and basically tells them that they did not save Barry. They, in fact, killed Barry, and he speeds off, and that's how the episode ends. So, now we have a dead Flash, apparently. How? I don't understand. I don't understand how Barry's dead. There's no way that Barry is dead, obviously. There is one thing I know you guys do want me to talk about, though. Of course, as we know in Arrow last week, we did get that scene with Barry seemingly having his powers back. Arrow and The Flash take place in two different time periods. They don't necessarily take place at the same time. They don't have to take place at the same time. And I think at this point, they're not taking place at the same time. I think the Arrow is taking place before The Flash, and The Flash is taking place after Arrow. That's kind of how I see it, at least. I'm not really sure. The fact that The Flash never references Arrow, really, except for a few times, and Arrow references The Flash a lot, I don't know. I feel like they are sort of connected, but I feel like at this point, the timelines are different. Like, The Flash is taking place in a different time than, not a different time, but like it's taking place in like a few weeks or weeks after, and Arrow is just, within a few weeks before. I think it's just within a few weeks. It's not a huge deal. But what an episode, guys. Oh my god, this episode was incredible. Seeing the power that Zoom has. Barry is not dead. We know he's not dead. There definitely is more to it. We'll have to see what happens there, but definitely Zoom is out to ruin his reputation. That's gonna be crazy to see what happens there. I can't believe that Zoom actually outed Barry to the cops, though. Now that what he did with Captain Singe and Joe, there's nothing they can do. They can't stop Zoom. We already saw there's nothing they can do. Zoom said that they're basically going to die if they try to stop him. There's nothing they can really do. So that's really crazy what happens with that. Wally and Jesse, I feel bad for these two because they really did want to just get involved and they really did want to do something, but there's nothing they can do because one, they don't have powers, and two, there's nothing really they can do. But my question here is, we know they were knocked unconscious, and we know obviously the particle accelerator happened, and we don't know if the lightning actually hit these two. But like I said, they are supposed to turn into Team Flash, because eventually Team Flash is going to happen, where Barry's going to have his own team, and I heard that Wally and Jesse do turn into metahumans, Wally turning into, I believe, Kid Flash, and then Jesse turning into, I don't remember what she turns into, but she does turn into something, I just can't think of what it is right now, but these two, I believe, are going to eventually, I do think they're going to be exposed to something. I think we're going to hear about it, but it's not going to do anything this season, but I do think we're going to hear about it as it goes on. It's going to be kind of like a Ray Palmer situation, where we don't hear about him turning into the Atom till, after what ends up happening, till after what ends up happening, next season. I think it's kind of going to be that situation. So we'll have to see what happens with that. I love that Henry's there. It just added so much more to this. That Henry conflict was a genuine situation. Henry obviously not wanting to see his son die, knowing what he's going to go through. It's a genuine problem, and I can't wait to see what happens with that. And what's going to happen with Henry is, how's he going to react to this? Definitely, that's going to be very interesting. And are they going to be able to go on without the Flash? Because right now, the Flash is seemingly gone. We know he's not actually gone, but right now it seems like he is. We'll have to see what happens with that. Caitlin, like I said, I feel like Caitlin does feel that there is some good in Zoom. I feel like he doesn't really think there is, but I think she kind of thinks there is, which is very interesting. We'll have to see what happens with that. Dante and Cisco, I like this dynamic. I hope we see more of that. I like seeing that Cisco actually got through to his brother, and that Dante and him actually seem to be getting really tight, and I like seeing that. And then the only other thing, I guess, is what happens between Iris and Barry. Do these two actually have a future together? Will they actually end up together? Can they actually be together? Iris said regardless of what happens that she still cares about him, so I'm sure if Barry's back, they'll eventually get together. And I feel like we're just this close to getting Iris and Barry back together. I can't wait to get them together. I can't wait to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, amazing episode. One of my favorites of the season, without a doubt. I absolutely love this episode. Exactly what last week's episode should have been. It focused on the interesting stuff. It didn't focus on them stopping a metahuman. It focused on how we move forward. What they're supposed to do in this situation. I love seeing that. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to your thoughts on it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which of course I have a lot to talk about, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.